Welcome to Faith in 5, a weekly video devotional designed to discuss practical spiritual concepts in 5 minutes or less. I'm your host, Mark Vandella. A few weeks ago, my wife and I kind of found ourselves in a pickle. She had to leave the house and go to an appointment, and I was getting ready for a virtual meeting, and she went down to our garage and tried to start her car, and it wouldn't start. So she came upstairs and said, "Hey, my battery's dead. I'm going to take your car." She went to my car and flat tire. So I was getting ready for a meeting. I had to quick text the person I was meeting with and said, "Hey, you're never going to believe this, but I have one car with a dead battery, one car with a flat tire, and I'm going to need to get my hands dirty." And Jenny, who I was meeting with, texted back. She said, "Well, if that isn't the most 2020 text ever, I don't know what is." And she was grace-filled, and we got it all figured out. But I tell you this because I think sometimes with cars, we take two different approaches. One is we either set it and forget it. We kind of just, Ashley left. We haven't driven her car in 2 weeks, and she left expecting it to just turn on. That's how cars are supposed to just work. If they've got gas, they run. Or sometimes with cars, we kind of think about the components individually. So like when her battery didn't start, we thought, okay, we got to jump the battery. But we don't often think about how all those moving parts go together, like the starter, the alternator, the battery, and how those all kind of make things go. And sometimes that maps really well onto our faith, is that we either kind of set it and forget it. We just go through life, we do the things, we go to church, everything's fine until it isn't, right? We have to be careful we don't have a faith that can't leave the garage, essentially. Or we get so focused on the components of it, right? Like I go to church, I pray, I read the Bible, but we don't necessarily see the interconnectedness of all that and how it makes us go. And I bring this up this week because we're in our Christmas series. And for me, that's how Christmas has always been. Historically, until I was a Christ follower and worked at a church and all that, it was just something that every year it came around. It was a date on a calendar, and it was kind of set it and forget it. I love the traditions. I love the candles, blah, blah, blah. But it never really like lived beyond Christmas. And I knew all the components, right? I knew virgin birth and born in a manger and North Star and all these sorts of things, but I never really let it wash over me or make any difference in my life. And the thing to consider here, the transition in our life to make is Christmas is more than an event. When it's just an event, it's easy to set it and forget it, and it's easy to look at it as a story. But if Christmas is the beginning of a journey, it changes the way we think about that. It helps us understand that this car that I start and drive is made to leave the garage, to go be on the road. And do I not only know how it works, but do I know what it looks like, and have I actually done it? And in the stories in the Bible, when I think about journey, I think about Moses. And the unique part about Moses is when God shows up to Moses, Moses has left Egypt. And God says, I want to engage you in this journey. I want to set you up for leadership. And Moses responds in Exodus 4:13. He says, "Please send someone else." And I think sometimes when our faith is built for either set it and forget it, we just are on autopilot, or we would prefer to stay in like driving school, read the owner's manual, rather than actually get on the road. We regularly respond this way when God shows up. We say, just send someone else. That's not my job. When the battery's dead, call the mechanic for something simple. Send somebody else. And in our Christmas series, we've been reading a book, or we've been using a book by Maria Goff called Love Lives Here. And in that book, she tells a story about her and Bob owning a gold mine. Now, if you have read any of Bob's books, or you've heard Bob or Maria talk, that them owning a gold mine doesn't surprise you. And if you haven't read any, I recommend there's a ton of crazy stories that you would think would be similar to the way we think about Christmas. It's an event, yeah, great, cute story. But they tell them in a way that they're real life. They're part of their journey. And so at first when Bob told Maria, she didn't believe him that they owned a gold mine. So he said, let's go, I'll show you. So they go up to the mountains of California. And Maria is telling the story about how she learned so much about gold mining. It seems like there's essentially two types of people. There were people who went out and they bought fancy maps. They plotted all these places. X marks the spot type people. They had all the tools. Some people even hired people. They bought land and sent others to go do it. They didn't find very much gold. But there were these people that would kind of moved into these towns. They lived, they made it a part of their life. It was a lifestyle, and they started digging. And along the way, they learned some things, and they had these like handmade tools that were much more useful for actually mining for gold because they were living it, they were doing it. And those were the people who found gold. And now the reason we're using this Love Lives Here book is because for me, for some reason, when I saw it on the shelf, it screamed Christmas to me. It's almost like a Christmas rebrand. Christ's birth is important, but when we just see Christmas, it's an event. But when we see it as the reason God sent Jesus was so that love lives here, so we would experience it, so we would find gold. This year in your faith journey, as you celebrate Christmas, as you love all the traditions and you light the candles and you do whatever it is that you do, take your faith into this space so that beyond Christmas, let this year's Christmas be something that helps you get your faith out of the garage and start living it out. Not because God says you need to go do this, but because God wanted to show us this. Basically, this is the story. This is how it works best. If you want to find gold, if you want to experience love living here, then our faith needs to be lived out. We need to start digging in the earth. We need to start having our cars leave the garage. So this week in your faith, pay attention to the places where God is showing up and asking you to do something, and the places where you naturally say, send someone else. And in this entire Christmas series and then into the new year, look for the places where you can show up in a way that represents God, in a way that says love lives here. It's not a story, it's not a fantasy, it's not something that we just talk about once a week. This is something that lives and breathes in me. It's washed over me. And as a result, you will experience love living here. Thanks for watching Faith in 5. If you like what you see, please like and share. If you're interested in making a donation to our ministry, please click the link below.